Hey everyone, and welcome to a list of my 10 favorite boss levels in Disney PlayStation games. I considered the title of this for a long time, ultimately because to indisputably call them my favorites wouldn't take into account the fact that my favorites change on a weekly, daily, and sometimes even hourly basis. Looking back on this video retrospectively, even now, there are changes I would make to the list, but if I did that, I'd never upload anything. So for now, this is my list of my top 10 Disney bosses. Not yours, mine. Now, there are rules. Firstly, this list solely covers games based on animated shorts and features and will therefore not cover, say, Kingdom Hearts. Also, I'm limiting it to one boss level per franchise. Okay, let's get started then. Unwelcome Guest Dinosaur. Alright, so this game leaves a lot to be desired. It's very short and the layout is frankly rather strange, especially with all the weird number point system and stars flashing up on the screen. But hey, at least it dares to be different. This boss sees you face the first Carnotaur in the cave, and it's good because it requires a bit more thought than performing a standard attack. Your tail swing has no effect on this brute, so you have no choice but to lure it onto some unstable ground so it could be crushed to death by falling debris. Anyway, while the boss level on the whole is fairly satisfying-ish, I must say that the level titles really detract from the overall dramatic feel they were going for. I mean, unwelcome guests? Oh yes, this carnivorous fiend is most unwelcome. Another level is called Unpleasant Company. Why did you ever? No, I never. Most unpleasant company. The Mad Doctor, Mickey's Wild Adventure. Originally, this game was titled Mickey Mania and was released for the Sega Mega Drive, and it was pretty notorious for its unexpected difficulty. The PlayStation re-release is not quite as brutal, but it's still fairly hard, especially due to the lack of a save feature. One of the earliest bosses you encounter is Shirley Bassey? No, it's the Mad Doctor, who's been holding Pluto captive. Obviously, it's up to you to rescue him. The Doctor isn't too hard to dispose of, all he does is fling bombs at you, accompanied by some weird and frankly unhealthy sounding nasal grunting. You can get rid of him just by pelting him with marbles. Interesting. Then you rescue Pluto and a doctor turns into a baby. Because, well, fuck knows, frankly. Behold! Prometheus! Prometheus, Meet the Robinsons. Okay, now I normally have an issue with movie tie-in games that focus very little on the plot of the movie. Sure, it's okay to have one or two levels or tasks that deviate from the film's storyline, but if you buy a game based on a movie, surely what you want is a game based on the movie, right? Meet the Robinsons is not one of those, but I'm gonna make an exception here because the plot is actually kinda clever. I don't want to ruin it in case you haven't played it yet. Seriously, this game is like 10 years old now, why haven't you? But basically, Wilbur Robinson manages to change the future, so much so that Emperor Stanley has taken over the city with Magma Industries, operated from the inside of a volcano. Once you find and confront him, he unleashes his guardian, the mighty Prometheus. This guy is big and slow and doesn't really have any special moves, although he can kill you in an instant. So why does he make this list? Well, actually this boss requires a little more thought than you might initially think. The clues to defeating him are not as obvious as some of the other clues in the game, so he poses more of a challenge. You need to use a levitation ray to lift the fallen debris before quickly switching to your Havoc gloves to push them into his face. Oosh! This angers him and he starts vomiting lava. You know, as we all do from time to time. Run about a bit and the chains will break, eventually loosening a giant boulder, conveniently suspended above him, for some reason. And before you know it, he's molten mush. Lovely, lovely. Panpipes to win, Peter Pan Adventures in Neverland. Yes, the crocodile has taken your panpipes, and he's surprisingly good at playing them too, somehow. By this point in the game, you've discovered something invisible blocking the path to the Indian village. Conveniently, Tiger Lily is there to tell Peter that the solution is to play music, because apparently some Indian legend says that invisible objects can be revealed by playing music, because Native American Indians are magic, don't you know? Even if this had some legitimacy to it, there's no real guarantee it will work, but anyhow, Peter flies to Skull Rock to fight the crocodile to get his panpipes back. The crocodile plays the panpipes and invisible birds appear out of nowhere. Once you've got rid of them, TikTok takes a jump at you, and you need to apply pixie dust to him to get him to stay out of the water, where you can stab him in the neck. Okay. A bit violent for Peter Pan, but still, it's one of the better boss levels in the game, and while it's not overly difficult, it's different enough to take its place on this list. Just remember kids, never smile at a crocodile, stab it in the neck. Slime Time, Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the rescue. This game is great. It deviates greatly from the plot, especially where the boss levels are concerned, but it remains enjoyable and exceedingly memorable. This level is especially memorable as it sees you defeat a giant slime monster in a dustbin. I mean, really, who wouldn't remember something like that? It's kind of like some weird Toy Story Ghostbusters crossover or something. Anyway, this guy has you trapped in the alley before you can get to the road opposite Owl's Toy Barn. I have no idea who he is, where he's come from, why he's there. It's never really explained. I mean, at least the other enemies in the game have the excuse that they're mere toys. Slimer here seems to be a menace to the public. Anyway, getting rid of him isn't too difficult, but I do have fond memories of getting briefly stuck here after the piss-easy first boss, when all you actually have to do is continuously fire your laser at him until he blows up and eventually bursts. Oh, little me, you were so clueless. I even got stuck in Hercules, you know, because I was chopping up the damsels instead of saving them. Yeah, but basic logic was never really my strong suit. Save the Colony, A Bug's Life. While not the hardest boss in the game, the final level of A Bug's Life is arguably the most memorable for playing out like a standard level as opposed to being set in a small battle arena like the previous bosses. In this level, you need to lure Hopper to the bird nest, where he's eaten alive. But the biggest challenge in this level is attaining 100%. Why? Because they trick you, damn it! Since Hopper is actually killed by the bird, he does not count as one of the enemies required for the Goldberry success token, meaning on your first playthrough, you're likely to miss an enemy. I call you first. The level is also memorable for maintaining a rather gloomy atmosphere, which is a complete contrast to the rest of the game's upbeat tone. Nothing overly innovative, and Hopper's demise is more funny than it is dramatic.
Help me! Help me! Ah!
I mean, seriously, how could he not see the bird coming for him? It's huge. But it does serve as a great end to a great game. Taking out the trash, Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas, Okies Revenge. This game is fantastic. I plan on reviewing it in full at some point. It's actually one of my personal favorites. This chapter is the final boss, who is, of course, none other than Mr. Oogie Boogie himself. Oogie falls in a giant holiday landfill and is transformed into Mega Oogie thanks to the landfill's resident creepy crawlies. Santa then leaves to deliver his presents.
Merry Christmas, Jack! Ho, ho, ho!
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks for pissing off and leaving me with this humongous sack of crap. For 100% completion, this level is actually pretty difficult, and it includes the most intense dance-off with a giant potato sack that I've ever played in my life. A perfectly morbid climax to a highly underrated game. Medusa's Lair, Disney's action game featuring Hercules. I'm kind of surprised that this boss never gets a mention for its difficulty. Sure, the Hydra is more memorable. I mean, what's not satisfying about decapitating the many heads of a giant towering serpent? But Medusa is more insidious, darker and creepier. Except, of course, when the fat, hideous Gorgon jumps up and down, instigating an earthquake. That's less than subtle. Defeating her is no easy task despite the level's by-the-numbers approach. I am of course talking about the level in Herculean mode. In the easier settings you'll likely have no problem, but in the hardest setting, wow, is this woman tough. All you need to do is to get her to look in the mirrors. It seems pretty standard, but then you also have falling rocks, snake venom, and hordes of skeleton warriors out to slaughter you. I'm not kidding, simple as the controls are, you'll likely die once or twice before you get the hang of it, and don't expect any sympathy off her. She's stone cold.
Say goodnight, ugly.
The Vault of Shadows, The Haunted Mansion. This game actually surprised me, and its ending is a clever twist. Yep, here comes a spoiler. It turns out that Atticus Thorne, the main villain, is in fact a giant worm creature. Bet you didn't see that one coming. After you've made your way through a hidden tunnel behind a mysterious painting in the foyer, you arrive at the stretching room, which literally stretches, revealing a door on the ground floor. Atticus is there waiting for you, and he steals your soul gems. By randomly cramming your friend Madame Leota into the ball, you are able to fight him off with continuous rapid shots, far more powerful than any of the soul gems. Why he couldn't have done this earlier in the game, I really don't know. Honestly, it really makes fighting a hell of a lot easier. Anyway, this boss makes the grade for its surprise element. Combat isn't great, and sometimes when you want to switch targets, the controls can be unresponsive. But seriously, what's not to like? It's a giant fire-breathing tentacled worm monster in a pit of lava. Seriously, who saw that coming? A great end to a game that's already pretty underrated. Here we are, number 1. Sabor attacks Tarzan. This level plays out like a standard level, only throughout you repeatedly encounter Sabor the leopard. Since you're armed with something other than bunches of various fruits for a change, this level's combat is arguably the most satisfying. Far more satisfying than the final boss Clayton, who chases you up a tree wielding a rifle, while you have lemons. Tarzan, mate, you're in a jungle. Your choice of weapon astounds me. Anyway, Sabor attacks is a little darker in tone than most other levels. There are two different attacks with the spear. One is the standard low jab, while the other is a higher jab for when the leopard pounces you. To be honest, the latter is pretty much useless. He doesn't stab much higher than the standard move, and you have a better chance of surviving if you just jump out of the way. Which, in reality, is probably what you'd do if a leopard was pouncing you. Saying that, Sabor doesn't really seem to be the biggest threat here. For me, the most annoying aspect of the level is them bloody birds. And there you have it. That's my top 10 bosses in Disney games. What'd you think? Leave a comment, leave a like, share it. I don't know, do whatever you guys do these days. I don't really know. Anyway, remember to follow me at Felix Idan and give us a like on Facebook. Bye-bye for now. Stab him in the neck.